For as long as we can remember, there have been people who turn a simple conversation into a silent battlefield, where every word is carefully chosen to push you in the direction they want. Now imagine the opposite. You, calm and aware, noticing every attempt at manipulation and answering with phrases so firm and simple that they dismantle any psychological game before it even starts. It may sound rare, but that is exactly the kind of quiet power Stoic philosophy has always taught, and it still works perfectly today, in a world full of planted guilt, emotional pressure, and exhausting relationships. And in the middle of all this, two questions naturally appear. Why do such short responses have such a deep impact? Do they work because they restore a boundary you should never have lost, or because they force the manipulator to face their own intentions without any disguise? The answer to both is clear yes. When you learn to position yourself calmly, without raising your voice and without building endless speeches, you remove the very fuel that keeps manipulation alive, your emotional reaction. That's why from this point on, I'll rebuild this path using your original script as a base, but in a completely new way, direct, grounded and focused on only one goal, giving you back the control that has always been yours. Before we move on, take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel and share it with someone who lives saying sim just to avoid upsetting others. This simple action helps a lot to strengthen this community of people who are learning to set boundaries without aggression and to protect their emotional balance. Now that you've done that, let's go deeper into the story. Manipulation rarely starts loud. It usually appears in small, innocent phrases, in advice disguised as concern, in comments that sound harmless, but slowly start shaping the way you behave. Little by little, what used to be just a suggestion becomes pressure. What used to be just someone's opinion starts to weigh more than it should. And that's exactly why phrases like, "I understand what you're saying, but my decision is already made," work like a wall. You acknowledge the other person's presence without handing over your autonomy. And that might be the core of Stoic thinking. You control your own mind, not the mind of the person trying to influence you. When you state something with serenity, without asking for approval and without trying to convince anyone, you create a cut the manipulator can't cross. They may argue, dramatize, play the victim, invert roles, but none of that works when you calmly return to the same line, with the same tone and the same clarity. That stability is exactly what confuses people who feed on chaos. As the ancients would say, the truly firm person is not the one who reacts all the time, but the one who remains unmoved. Another answer that dismantles a lot of control attempts is, you have the right to think that way, and I have the right to disagree. It sounds simple, but it's profoundly freeing. Manipulators love to turn their opinion into a decree, but when you hand responsibility back to where it belongs, their own thinking, you end the game before it starts. And that's usually when the classic reactions appear: irony, offended looks, emotional blackmail. Still, none of that changes the fact that you do not have to accept someone else's worldview as absolute truth. And when you say, "I don't feel comfortable with this, so I'm not going to do it," you create space for something many people have lost: respect for their own inner signal. Manipulators love to push you into situations that hurt you and then label your reaction as exaggeration or nonsense. But if there is discomfort, there is a boundary being crossed. Stoic philosophy has always treated inner unease as a compass. Ignoring it is the first step toward betraying yourself. In the same way, situations that turn affection into a weapon, "If you really cared, you would do this for me," call for a clear answer. "If I have to disrespect myself to please you, then my answer is no." This sentence separates love from submission. No healthy relationship demands that one side constantly sacrifices their emotional well-being. And contrary to what many people say, protecting your dignity is not coldness, it is emotional maturity. When the tone of the conversation shifts and the other person starts attacking, another phrase becomes essential. "I'm not going to continue this conversation in that tone." You don't attack back, don't humiliate, don't insult. You simply set the minimum condition for any dialogue: respect. And by doing that, the other person loses the emotional ground they would use to shake you. The manipulator depends on your loss of control to win, and it's exactly your calm that destroys the strategy. Then, in moments when someone tries to surround you with advice that feels more like orders, another line appears: "This may be important to you, but this decision is mine to make." That way, you listen, but you don't hand over the steering wheel of your life. You consider what the other says, but you don't submit to it. A simple line that separates autonomy from control. Guilt, an old friend of manipulative relationships, also meets its answer when you say, "I am responsible for what I do, not for what you feel." This sends the emotional weight back to where it belongs. You own your actions, but not someone else's inner world. And this clarity is deeply liberating. To avoid agreements that exist only to preserve a fake peace, another phrase becomes necessary. I prefer an honest silence over a forced agreement. Worse than conflict is betraying yourself just to keep the appearance of harmony. And when someone tries to twist your memory, minimize your feelings, or distort what happened, your defense is simple. I know what I lived, and I won't doubt myself just because you say otherwise. That sentence restores your inner confidence, something manipulators constantly try to erode so they can dominate you. Finally, when everything reaches the limit, the phrase that closes the cycle is, "I can forgive you, but you will not have the same access to my life." Forgiveness frees you. Controlling access protects your peace. If you've made it this far, write in the comments, "Today I choose to let go." And if this content resonated with you, leave a like, subscribe to the channel and share it. Someone out there needs to hear this today.